Hello, everybody. Um, I just need to arrange my desktop here quickly. I have had an intense day so far. Hmm. Let's just move it like that. There we go. That should be good. Okay, so today we are working on. We're going to start off with question 1B. We're just going to actually work through it. So now on when was it? Tuesday? Wednesday? I don't know. When I last saw you, what we did was we went through kind of the theory behind it. Now I want you to take your question 1A and your that you've finished answering, and I want you to take your final piece that you wrote, and then I want you to turn it into a thing, turn it into something useful. So, like a commentary. Now, I want us to take about half an hour to do this. Um, no longer than half an hour. Okay. And if you have already completed it after the previous thing, I welcome you to edit what you've got or try again, see if there's anything else you discover. Um, yeah, I am quite excited for this. Let's see, I've got my thing open here. Let's just make sure you guys can all see my screen. No, not yet. Apparently, we want obsidian. By the way, for those who are not in the know, I am absolutely obsessed with obsidian, and you cannot convince me to not be. Like, it's like my favorite thing. Okay. So let's get going. I've got my obsidian open here. I'm going to just take what I wrote. I've made so many notes here. Now I'm going to actually turn it into something useful. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jot down a couple of thoughts on this piece of paper, right? And then I'm going to start writing. I will share my screen with you on and off, but we're going to do it in sprints. So we're going to do it in 10-minute sprints. Um, so we're going to write for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to check in on you. You're going to give me some feedback, and as you're going, I want you to just ask me questions. I'm here for questions. Let's go for pink today. Pink pen works. Pink pen works. Fabulous. Okay. So I'm going to start the first 10 minutes. Imagine if my Alexa was plugged in, that would be great, but it's not. So I'm just going to keep track of it here. Okay. Guys, I got carried away. Okay, how is everyone doing with us? So do you include the thesis statement? I would say always include a thesis statement, otherwise you don't know where you're going. It's kind of like when you get in the car, you set your GPS. Your thesis statement is your GPS. And when you get off at to go fill up, put some petrol in, you need to get back on the highway. It kind of is going to reroute you and whatever so that you can get back on. Your thesis statement is going to hold your whole thing together. Okay? So you'll see that my thesis statement is largely based around my gasp, which is a very normal thing that I do. Not everyone does it like that, but I like to do it like that because I like to make sure that everything I say when I'm speaking about language, form, and structure, everything I say is guided by the idea of genre, audience, and purpose. Okay. Does anyone have any other questions? Can I keep writing? Okay, I'm going to keep writing. If you have more questions, do speak up. I may have just made up a word. I don't know. Okay, I have to stop myself there. There is a lot more that I can write, and I probably should write a lot more. But I don't have time. Um, we ran out of time in exams. I said I was going to give us half an hour. We've now taken 35 minutes. We don't have time. In our exam, we have to move on. Okay? So even though this is not what I wanted to say. This is not all that I wanted to say. I wanted to say so much more. And I told you guys everything that I wanted to say. Well, a lot more of what I wanted to say. I feel like what I wrote here lacks specific examples. I feel as though it's lacking. Like, I really wanted to talk about the juxtaposition. I really wanted to talk about the use of the use of Lexis, um, I really did want to talk about how at the top of the second page here we've got like a change in vibe, whereas that's not necessarily possible in um in a brochure format. I also wanted to talk about how both of them handle a call to action. Um, yeah, so I really could say a lot more, but just as you guys in exams struggle with your time, I also struggle with my time. I struggle to make sure that everything gets said. And there's much more to say. So I'm going to read you what I've got. If any of you have one that you want me to share, that you want me to read out loud, tell me and I will read it. Okay? So I said, while the brochure and newspaper report cover the same topic, they are vastly different, which can largely be attributed to their differing forms, which dictate the different purposes and audiences. Both pieces are discussing the art exhibition at Prado, but since the audience of an online newspaper is vastly different from the audience of a brochure, the use of language and structure match their respective contexts. Being that an online newspaper is a longer format and can reach a much broader audience, the author had much more space to explore the final details of the event than the brochure did. Additionally, the use of language does not require the same concision required by a brochure. For instance, the use of "and the reason for that" is only possible because of the long form nature of the article, but allows a more um, conversational tone. Yeah, if you want me to read it out loud, you can send it on Discord. Yeah, I was going to say, well, you can WhatsApp it to me, but I'm definitely not putting my WhatsApp number on YouTube. Just no. Let me quickly put the Discord server link here. Um, I mean, I don't know if you can post it here, post it on YouTube because I think there are space constraints. Um, It's only possible because of the long form nature of the article, but allows a more conversational tone. The brochure omits the final details as the aim is to get people to the event, which is appropriate since the brochure is limited by print capacity, distribution capacity, and geographical constraints. Those who actually do access the brochure are far more likely to actually attend than those who are being interacted with online, as the geographical constraints play a smaller role in the newspaper article. Thus, their linguistic differences and their structural similarities can largely be attributed to their genre differences and consequent audience differences. Now, I do want to say here that I feel like I'm stumbling over my words a little bit here. These things would have been, again, I missed here where I missed the mark was I was writing as though I have hours to write. I have limited space, and so I need to say the important things. And here saying like and the consequent audience differences, that is implied. I don't actually need to do that. Um Let me show you. Um, Here at the walkthrough, you can post it in the forum. I'm gonna just tag everyone here. I'm just going to notify everyone. Sorry about that. Um, Both text use short paragraphs, the brochure doing so because of the print limitations and the way that longer paragraphs will make the brochure graphologically inaccessible. I think there was a better way to explain that. I was just realizing at that point that I don't have the space all the time. The newspaper does so because of the heavy use of quotations appropriate for the text format, which aims to share what other experts have said and is an integral part of journalism. Both texts also have catchy titles, with the brochure being shorter and slightly humorous. That's what I was trying to say, suggesting that the audience smells the art, and the newspaper headline having their headline and subtitle as is fitting for the format. Again, I'm a little bit iffy there. Both aim to create intrigue and introduce the reader to the exhibition. Yeah, so that's what I wrote. Let's check what you wrote. I hope this is going to open. I am running Linux. I may have something that opens this. Yes, I do. Look at that. It's opening. Do you mind if I read it out loud? This is Shadow Studios. The two texts have different forms, which we can identify from the tones and key conventions. Yeah, tone is a good thing to talk about. The first text is an article, um, as it has an informative tone and it's written from the third person perspective. Great. The other text is an advertisement as it has a more persuasive. Oh, you're not too happy with your advert though. It's okay, I won't read the advert out loud. Um, a persuasive tone and seeks to convince its audience to join in with the event. These forms show us the different intentions, as the article seeks to inform its audience about this artwork. While the advertisement seeks to persuade the audience to see it in person. Yes, great. And I love that you have brought it right at the beginning. So you've kind of centered that purpose. You've centered what they're trying to do. And yeah, this is actually usually what I would do as well. I do recommend at the very beginning saying what is the purpose, who is the audience, what makes up that audience, and why is that audience who they are. Um, these forms and intentions make it easy to identify the target audiences for the article. The target audience is specifically people who are interested in art and artistic interpretations, while the advert specifically targets people who live in or near Madrid and who would be interested in going out to see themselves. The time frame further limits this audience, as the mention that it is on a weekend will make the event more accessible to more people. Okay, at that point, I just want to say something that could have been added at that point. Since I'm giving feedback, something that could have been added at that point is you could have really linked there. That would have been a good space, even though it's not totally on point there, or on topic, but on point is a different thing. Um, but something that you could have spoken about there maybe, is how that led to the language change, language differences. But I see that you spoke about language here, so let's keep going. When looking at language, the article's author is subtly trying to convince people that the event was exciting and newsworthy. Thus, they have used descriptive language such as heavy visuals and incredibly beautiful, which have positive connotations. This makes the information seem appealing to the reader. The advert is less subtle, as its intention is directly to convince the audience to come. Thus, only the interesting and key information is presented. All of the extra information contained in the article is omitted, as the advert wants to keep its limited audience. Thus, anything that may be boring to some people is left out in order to maintain interest for as long as possible. Okay, Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing to identify. Another thing that the article does is it uses emphasis on the event being natural in order to appeal to a wider audience. And something I just want to say here, something I noticed as I was writing this, was that the use of more jargon in the newspaper article versus my brochure could actually be attributed to the fact that the audience is broader. There's more people who could potentially read it. Therefore, there is more chance of an artist. It's actually more aimed at artists, even though the audience is broader. Um, so another thing that the article does is it uses emphasis on the event being natural in order to appeal to a wider audience, as it will help people who stand against animal cruelty to feel as if it is something that they would be willing to support. Um, and also, I would say that it's a type of people who hang out. That's something you could have added. The type of, if we build our audience and say what type of person is my audience, um, they are the type of people who are usually, if we're looking at artists and things like that, they're usually people who would be more interested in activism and things like that. So, taking structure into consideration, we can see that the article uses long sentences to create a slow pace, which is combined with the use of short paragraphs in order to make it easy for the reader to focus on details and information. This allows the reader to take in all the facts and helps avoid the reading from getting too long or monotonous, because the short paragraphs help to give breaks in between the slow pace. The advert only has two paragraphs and a heading. The sibilance in the scent of success helps to draw attention, and then the first paragraph contains a few interesting tidbits of information which keep the reader's attention long enough for their curiosity to be aroused. Then the second paragraph provides the key information that those interested need to participate. Okay, so I like how you broke down the structure. Um, it's a great way to talk about structure. Um, In conclusion, despite both texts covering the same topics, the article aims to provide a summary of the event and provides context as to why it is taking place, while the advert rather aims to encourage people to participate and does not go into as much detail. Therefore, they address different audiences, as while both aim for artistic individuals interested in the event, the advert has a smaller audience, as it will only be relevant to people who can attend. Therefore, the article uses descriptive language to describe the event to those who could not attend, while that advert rather use while that advert rather uses key information and tidbits to entice people into attending. I love it. Wonderful. Some very basic crits. In terms of the structure, the way that you've structured this works sometimes. Depending on how you're doing your analysis, this first talking about form, then language, then structure, sometimes works, but often, especially when you look at a longer text analysis, it is not going to work. And the reason for that is you get repetitive. So, for instance, when you speak in your second last paragraph about the sibilance, um, that that could possibly connect a little bit better um, when we're talking about language. But, and so breaking it up like that kind of break them up to the point, can, not always, but it can break them up to the point that it's not clear whether you're seeing the connections and relevance between the different parts. Okay. Um, Fabulous. Do any of you have any questions? Any crit for me? I'm not totally happy with mine, but we know this. I'm never actually totally happy with mine. And just going to post it here. But yeah, Shadow Studios, well done. If you have any other questions, just message me, okay? On Discord, maybe, to be a good place afterwards. Okay. I need to just have a sip of water. Ooh. Okay. Can we jump into question 2? I'm just looking for my question 2 here. First session on Monday. Okay, let's do it. Can I quickly have a show of hands? How are you guys doing? Do I need to give you like a 5-minute break before we move on to question 2? Crickets. Okay, cool. No one on Discord has said anything, so we're gonna go on. Okay. So, question 2. Let me share my screen. Sorry. So, question 2 is our text analysis section. So, I just want to do some explaining on how we handle this. Now, your comparative analysis is different to your text analysis question because they're both analyzing, but your comparative analysis is really comparing those two. Now, here, I want an in-depth analysis. You're getting 25 marks. I want an in-depth analysis. We're looking at form, structure, and language. If you're someone who usually does it in a specific way, try to do it a different way this time. Try to challenge yourself to try it in, I don't know, some new way. So it says, read the following text, which is an extract from an article from an online sports magazine featuring an interview with South African cricketer Shabnam Ismail. Analyze the text focusing on form, structure, and language. So as always, when it comes to anything like this, who wants to take a stab at what my as always statement is going to be? You're going to read it as though you are the intended. Read it as the audience. Okay? I know it is tempting, and it is very, very tempting for me too, especially in an exam when I've got limited time. It's tempting to read it to respond. Okay? But as I'm sure you are aware, if you've ever tried to have a conversation with someone and you have only listened so that you can respond, you are never going to understand. You don't understand what they're talking about. Does everyone agree? I agree. Okay, so you're never going to understand really what they're talking about if you are listening to respond. So we need to read as if we really do want to just experience the text. So take a moment and we're going to experience the text. Okay. So I'm going to give us, what is it? It's like 800 words. So 4 minutes. I'll give you 4 minutes to read this. Okay. It's maybe a little bit long, but let's do 4 minutes to read this, and then I'm going to read it out loud. Sydney, we're just reading the text quickly, okay? I'm just waiting for the rest of your question to show up. Shadow. Okay, you know what? That could be a good way to do it, but it needs to feel like you're building on the thinking. Okay? So many people think that an analysis essay is just like throw everything at the page and basically word vomit. Okay, that's not what we're going for. Nobody wants to read your word vomit. It's a waste of everyone's time and energy, really. So, when you are writing, sure, definitely identify the form, identify the structure, identify the language, purpose, audience, um, identify all these things, and then connect them. The problem that can get repetitive, what can get repetitive is if you're saying, okay, well, this feature does this thing to this end, to this, and it has this effect. And then if you then take that and say, okay, now 3 paragraphs later, this thing, which is kind of similar, does the exact same thing, and you haven't grouped them, that's where it can get repetitive. Now, and that's why I wouldn't recommend a chronological look at the text either, where you just say in the beginning this, this, and this. And I don't always recommend a language form and structure to it. I have seen people do it really, really well though. It's just more often than not, it's not good. And so I would say that you should be prepared to change up the way you're doing it, but do it in the way that's most comfortable for you. Because ultimately, it is better to be a little bit repetitive than to not actually be able to. Because a lot of this is about, I write a thing. So personally, I write things so that I can think through it. So if you're getting to exam and you can't think through the text because you haven't actually put it down, you haven't actually written about it, and you can't actually think through the connections, it's better to do it in the way that works for you than to try and conform to some other method. Does that make sense? Just like maths, it's not about the method. Nobody cares about the method. The method is only there so that you can show us that you understand. So that we can see, is there a logical connection here? Or are you saying that x plus 2 is actually equal to x plus 7? Is it making sense? And so when we are looking at your text analysis, I want to see your process make sense. I want to see your thinking. We are testing your thinking about English in text analysis. Okay. Does that make sense? Just tell me if I have answered your question. I'm just going to read this text quickly because I'm also going in blind. I have not read this text. I specifically chose this exam because I haven't read these texts. Okay. Is everyone finished reading? Do you guys want me to read the text to you? Would that help? Okay. So I just want to jot down some thoughts. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Yeah, I'd prefer to not read it out loud if that's possible. Then we can cover more, I agree. Okay, so we've got fast times. Is the part in italics considered an anecdote? This part at the beginning here. From playing in the streets of boys to becoming a speed demon feared by batters across the world. Here's the South Africa bowler's story. No, I wouldn't say it's an anecdote. Um, it makes a reference to their life, but an anecdote would be more like a story about their life. I think there is one here. Okay, wait. There's lots of questions coming in. And it would be correct to say that that provides context as to what the article is about. Yes, it definitely does require, it does provide context as to what the article is about. I wouldn't say that it is an anecdote. If someone wants to fight me on that, you're welcome to. but I do think that it provides context about their life and or context about what the article is about, and it's actually very much in line with an article from an online magazine. Online magazines, online newspapers often do like little subheadings like this. Actually, most newspapers, or I don't want to say most, it depends. But it is very on brand for this type of text. Okay, now something I want to explore quickly. So I'm just going to jot down a couple of thoughts here. I'm going to change my color because I'm not vibing with the blue. So would you tie that to structure and audience, perhaps how that insert draws in the target audience, as it makes it easy to identify the genre? Okay, we know the genre, right? We know the text type. But we're wanting, yeah, so it tells us that it is very sporty. The It does draw in the audience because it is very catchy, calling becoming a speed demon feared by batters. That is very emotional language. It is very emotive. Um, and it is very subjective. Okay. And that also tells us that the article is going to be kind of subjective. It sets us up to expect that. Okay. Um, and it's a biographical article, right? So we also need to be aware of that. So we've got this whole biographical vibe to it. Um, and that sets you up to look at that because for like I wouldn't always read a biographical article. It really depends on the time and the place for me. Um, I'm not always into biographical articles. And so it does really help you with your genre. And then that also dictates where it's going. So we've got this, we're going to look throughout for these details. Okay. So yeah, we've got, it's a newspaper. It is online and it's a biographical article. And I just want to say the title, the subtitle. Um, let's not call it subtitle. I don't know what I would call it. I don't feel like it's a subtitle. I can't think of the name right now. Um, there is a there's an actual term for it that I can't think of right now. Can anyone help me with this term? Okay. Now, if we look at this, Fast Times with Shabnam Ismai, okay? Oh, they may have missed a letter there. Okay. So we look at our title, Fast Times with Shabnam Ismai. It's a very catchy short thing. And we look at the words throughout. I just want to bring your attention to the words throughout. Do you see how most of the diction is very accessible to the average Joe? Um, they're not really using any high Alexis. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not seeing. Yeah, it's very accessible. It's Yeah. And then we've got a lot of quotations. So I just want to bring your attention to the quotations because it's an interview format. If you're talking about someone's life, you want to know about the different details. So we're going to expect that. That's kind of normal to expect that, right? Um, all these details, all these direct quotations. And so that would also line up with genre. Okay. So I usually, when I get to an exam like this, I just write on a piece of paper. I will just do my gasp quickly, and I'll make like a little mind map, and I'll do my click po. This is because I have ADHD and I have to write these things down in order for them to exist. Okay. So a lot of people can get into the exam and do no planning and just kind of write. I can't do that. Like my brain goes everywhere. I have too many thoughts happening at the same time. Okay. And so that reminds me, I need to take this book. I was thinking, why am I struggling to focus right now? It is like only 1 o'clock. I remembered I forgot to take my 11 o'clock meds. Okay, so we've got ClickPo. So something I want to bring you. Sorry, this is Lexis and Semantics. Okay, so what do you guys notice about Lexis and Semantics? This is interactive. Here I am going to need your input. I'm kind of like over lecturing right now. Any of these, tell me what to put down. I'm going to change this so that you don't need to, so that there's no like wait time before comments are posted. Is there a way to do that? Okay, now you guys can just post immediately. It's not going to let you wait a second before your thing comes through. Okay. So I'm waiting for you guys to give me something. Okay, so if you have anything for me to add here, tell me, please. Or do you want me to give you some time to quickly read through it, figure some things out, make some notes, and then you can add to my list? Previously, how we did it was we put it into a Google Doc and then everyone just like added comments to it. Okay, so we've got a semantic field of speed fast living. Okay. So her life increasing pace. Now, this pace increase in her life can also be seen right at the end, hey? Where she's kind of like missing being able to just say, I'm going out to go play, hey? Here is how I take my notes. So, form, biographical, newspaper article, ties to purpose and audience. That's perfect. Purpose to inform, educate, and perhaps entertain, ties to audience, and form. Something that's going to help you in your exam is putting one or two examples with each of those things, especially with this one, especially with this. I can't hear you, Sydney. Wait, let me just quickly leave that call and come back. Sydney, speak now. There we go. Now I can hear something. So especially when you look at it like that, having one or two examples are really important for each of these things because we want to prove it. Everything needs to be proven. Okay, we can't just make a statement. So we're going to make our point. We're going to provide some kind of example. We're going to explain. And I would say there's an evaluation step which takes it that way, but I really think we should look at effect here and the effect that it has. And that's going to connect it to the larger piece. And this is your connection that you've got. This is how it connects. Okay. So, language, emotive language. Okay, so quotations are used to provide multiple opinions from trusted sources or shared resources in order to allow the reader to form a similar opinion to the sources. That is very, very relevant. So if we look at the genre, we've got this newspaper, right? So we've got this news article. The first-hand accounts, I would actually call them primary sources. So the first-hand accounts allow you to make your own opinion. You to form your own opinion. Okay. The rhetorical question is the one. A what? There we go. So structure, catchy title, paragraph directly after used to draw in the audience and to provide context to the topic of the text. It ties to purpose and audience. This is really great. So does anyone, how do the rest of you make your notes? So I always do mine in like a mind map form, but I know that's not the best for everyone. So how do the rest of you do it? Sydney, how are you making your notes? Again, I can't hear you. Give me a sec. Let's see if that fixes it. I'm gonna disconnect and reconnect my audio. Sydney, can you hear me? Okay. So, how do you make your notes? So, so, yeah. So you do just like a basic annotation. I also sometimes do that depending on the day. What about you, Fizzy Peach? OT? So I really like the way that Shadow Studios just like kind of writes it in point form like this. Um, and I have seen a lot of people that really works for. It doesn't usually work for me because I get carried away. Like, actually, that's really what happens. I get carried away. Okay. So we've got this catchy title. We've got the paragraph directly after, used to draw in the audience and to provide context of the topic of the text that ties to purpose and audience. So what I would like to do with this one, right, is instead of us writing it in class, which we could do, I would like us to write it at home or outside of class time, and then we come to class with it already done, and then on Monday, it must already be done, and then we go through what everyone said. Okay, so Monday I kind of want it to be a feedback session. Um, no, just question two. Okay, so if you have your thing, compose it on Discord, and we'll probably get through four. So the first four people to post theirs we can do. Now, because I want to, I noticed a couple of very different things to you, Shadow Studios. And also I noticed in my comparative analysis that I was looking at different things. And that's the point. The point is not to have everyone think the same thing, see the same thing. The point is for us all to see the different components and explore the different components. Does that make sense? So, um, oh, um, okay, yeah, the video will be available. I'm sorry about that. Um, but I just want to spend some time now just talking about how we take this information, how we take all our points, and we turn it into an essay. Okay. So, in order to take our points that you guys have, that I have, that Shadow has, in order to take those points and turn them into an essay, yes, it's good to have these things, but we're going to always start, and this is my method, or my, I know this works. And the reason I know this works is because I've never seen it not work. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to, for your essay, you're going to basically refine that question, because saying something like the language, form, and structure is very, very broad. It's a very, very broad topic. Okay. And so something I like about Pearson exams is that they ask a very specific question. Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to decide to be more specific in how you're answering it. Okay. So in what direction are you going to answer it? And then you write your thesis statement. So your thesis statement is a one sentence thing, or one or two sentences, that offers, it's a vector. I always call it a vector. It's got a topic and it's got a direction. Okay. So it tells me what you're talking about, the language, form, and structure, but it also tells me what direction you're going to be taking it in. Okay? Are you going to be focusing on how the specific audience impacts the language and structure in this way, and the audience is dictated by the form? Or how are you going to do that? And so that's where we take that's where we write our thesis statement at the very beginning, and it kind of directs our thing, the flow of our writing, kind of like I did with my comparative analysis. Okay, so we wanted to direct the flow of our writing. Okay, so from there, what we do then is we're like, okay, so we've got this bigger picture. What are we actually going to talk about? Okay, so we have 900 words. Okay, max. We have just written 50 words in our introduction. We have 850 words left. So let's say we want to spend 100 words talking about our language, 100 talking about our structure, 100 talking about our form, and then kind of appending some extra paragraphs to each of those, and kind of building it out like that. We're building something. Now, the idea is you are building something, you are sharing some kind of understanding with me. You need to treat your audience as if they have your market, your examiner, as if they are learning from you. Teach them, show them, let them see. Okay, so let them see how this thing connects to that thing. Don't treat it as we don't get penalized for only writing 600 to 700 because I usually run out of time around there in question 2. No, 600 to 700 words is perfect. I'm just saying in your exam you probably won't be able to write more than 1,800 words. And so you should aim for about 6 to 900 words. That's the speed that your hand should be able to write. We don't penalize you for not writing enough. You get penalized for not saying enough. Does that make sense? If you write 900 words and most of those 900 words are just fluff, you don't get the marks. So I have had a student who wrote very, very concisely and was able to write their analysis and get 23 out of 25 for this analysis, and they did really, really well, but they wrote it in 450 words. So it is totally possible to do it in less. It's just in terms of planning our time, figure out what each paragraph's going to be about, and then at the beginning of each paragraph decide this is what the paragraph's going to be about. Have like a topic sentence which directs your paragraph, and then stick to that topic sentence. Otherwise, especially when it comes to this section, what people do is they will have the topic, they will kind of start talking about one thing in a paragraph, think about another thing and how it connects, and they will kind of get lost there. Now, Shadow, I think your writing is very focused, and that's really great. You just need to make sure that you're using some high Alexis and the correct terminology. So not that you're using the wrong terminology, you just aren't using the most precise terminology. So be precise in your terminology and how you're addressing these things. Okay. Let me just think. Okay, so then you've got like a topic sentence which directs your thing. Then at the end, you're going to have your conclusion. And some people don't write a conclusion at all for this, and that's fine. You might run out of time. Okay, don't worry about your conclusion. Make sure everything is said. Your conclusion should not contain anything new anyway. But your conclusion, make sure it's your way of making sure that all that you have said has linked to itself. Okay, it's like an obsidian vault. If it doesn't link, it's pointless. Okay, if you're just going to spew a bunch of facts at me, it's not going to help. Does that make sense? Okay, so on Monday, for our lesson, I think our lesson is at 11:30. So on Monday for our lesson, we're going to come. Everyone's going to have their stuff. I want at least four texts. And I'm going to go through them, show you what was good, what was bad, what we can improve, stuff like that, and give some feedback on that. And then we can jump into paper 2. Okay. Has anyone got any questions? I was going to do this live with you now, but I'm tired. My brain is tired. And so I'm not functioning optimally. So there's no point in me putting you through it. Yeah? Anyone? No questions? Okay. Everyone following on YouTube, are you all good? Perfect. I will send you guys the recording of today. Well, it should be live now. And then on Monday, as soon as our thing is finished, the recording will be available. Okay. Goodbye, everybody.